Okay, so today on the podcast, I have a very special guest, Nicole. Nikki is actually my cousin. This is part podcast, part YouTube, but it's not going on the same platform owned by us. Because I have my own YouTube channel, but I don't post on there. I haven't posted on there in a while. So this is just exclusively for my podcast, and this is for
my channel.
Nikki's channel. So I'm Heidi Vega. I'm the creator and host of My Work in Progress, the podcast. And today I'm interviewing Nikki because I want to know a little bit more about how you got started. Because when I first heard about K-pop and all that stuff, you were like the first person to really introduce me to that.
Yeah.
It was something that like not a lot of people knew about, and it felt like something that I was like, this is the only thing my cousins do. Like, only my cousins are doing this. And then I just progressively have seen the ball rolling more and more, that we see it even in like our mainstream media, them talking about real, like famous K-pop stars and stuff like that. So first, what do you call yourself like amongst the K-pop community? Like, do you say like I'm K-pop dancer, or do you just say you're a dancer?
I just call myself a dance coverist.
Okay, how did this start?
It started when I used to live in Vegas. I had a couple of friends who were Korean. This one specific friend, she was the one that introduced me to like Big Bang and SHINee and Super Junior. So I remember after watching, I think it was Super Junior Sorry Sorry, I wanted to learn how to dance. Those moves.
Okay.
So we decided to do a talent show during our middle school, and ever since then I continued with it.
Okay, and you got your like siblings, well, your sister.
Yeah, my sister and my brother.
Right.
My little brother.
Right. Okay, so that's where it started. How did that transform into, because I feel like it's not just K-pop for you, like there was a lot of like the Korean dramas and stuff.
Yeah.
How did that progress? It's just like one led to another, or?
Well, yeah, it's mostly because of my friends as well. Okay. This is another friend. So when I got into high school, that's when I was introduced to K-dramas by one of my friends. And she was telling me to watch You're Beautiful. Do you remember that one? Because we watched it together. Yeah. Okay. So she told me to watch that one, and then after that one, I just got addicted. So I watched more and more and more, and then I got more into the food.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Because my friend was half Korean, her dad would make us Korean food, so that's how I got introduced to that as well.
Okay. And it's like, it's almost like you attracted like the culture
to myself,
to yourself, right?
Yeah,
because you attracted friends who were Korean, and the culture itself like just kind of came naturally to embrace. Do you feel like awkward sometimes because you're not Korean and being so involved kind of in the culture as far as like K-pop and really into the food and stuff like that?
I honestly did for a little bit, because I started working at a Korean market. That was my first job. Right. The reason why I felt kind of awkward at first was because there was a bad, how should I say? I don't know if you know the term Koreaboo. Do you know what that is?
Taboo?
No, it's like a weeaboo. Do you know what a weeaboo is?
Oh,
okay.
So new words.
Okay. So Koreaboo is like a person who is so like they want to be Korean. They'll try so hard to be Korean to the point where like
they deny
their own race background. Or their own background.
Right.
Yeah. So like I don't think of myself that I'm that way, because I love my culture. You know, every culture is different. That's what I like about learning about different cultures. So for a long time, I didn't want to learn Korean just because I was nervous or scared to be associated to that word.
Okay.
Yeah, but I noticed that I had to learn some Korean because of work, because a lot of the higher ups, like the managers, don't know English. So I had to pick up here and there like a few words and stuff. So after that, I'm not scared to be labeled that, because I know I'm not.
So K-pop, to me, okay, for the listeners, what is K-pop?
K-pop is Korean popular music. basically. So it's just like music from here, but just in Korean. Like they even use English words.
Right.
And you could tell from like when I first got into it, from now it's so different.
Oh yeah. Well, I was gonna touch on that too. The fact that I feel like when you K-pop to me in the beginning reminded me of the allure that Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, the boy band groups, had when I was growing up. And that's kind of what made them like interesting to me. It's similar to the way like Bollywood, you can't stop, like seriously, when I go, there's this Indian restaurant I go to and they have Bollywood like playing all the time on the TV. And I go there and for some reason I just can't stop looking at it. And I'm like, it's a little corny, but it's like something about it you're just like so interested about it because there's so much color and life to it. And I think that was kind of like the nice part about boy bands was like there's a ton of them. There's not just one person to look at. They're all doing their little thing. They do their little dances together and it's like a whole show. That's kind of how I saw K-pop in the beginning. And then it was so interesting to see it like transform so fast. Do you feel like there's any appropriation going on between like what Koreans do and then kind of taking that from like the hip hop and more specifically the Black community?
Yes. There's a whole debate on YouTube about appropriation like in the Korean hip hop world.
Right.
So there's been lots of controversies recently where like artists have like said the N-word.
Oh wow.
Or like cornrows or like dreadlocks or like they sag their pants or whatever, right? Yeah. So a lot of fans have called people out. So the good thing is that they're learning at the same time like what to do and what not to do.
Like you're going too far.
Yeah, but then there's some artists that like don't see it that way. They see it as more like, I'm appreciating their culture.
Right.
You know?
Like you're turning something that is looked down upon because I do this, but when you do it, it's a trend. Right? Yeah, and I completely understand that. And I wonder about that because it is Korean. It's in a different country. You know what I mean? Like they don't have necessarily the experience of even at least just being in this country and having, that real experience of at least having somebody that that's gone through things, seeing it for yourself, people going through racism or any kind of just like the troubles of being not like looking a certain way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that being said, I wonder, if there's a lot of attention being paid to them by anybody other than K-pop fans. You know what I mean? Like, do people come out and say something even if they're not
K-pop fans?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I've never seen that.
Like a lot of people like coming
from outside of K-pop fans. No, it's just K-pop fans that are well aware of that, so they call them out on it. Yeah. You don't,
often you hear a lot about it if it's like a thing.
Yeah.
Like you'll hear about it on like the news and they'll be talking about, or like they'll, on social media, they'll get attacked by a bunch of people and then it's a whole thing, like a news cycle thing. But you don't hear about that very often. And I'm like, I think it's because it stays within the community.
Yeah, it does.
The fact that they're in Korea. So it's kind of like, it's a far away situation going on and you don't like pay that much attention to it. If they were here, that would be like a completely different story. You know what I mean? Like people would be paying attention a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think because it's a different country, people are more like, and I think there's something to be said about the fact that it is like they have a very limited understanding of just Black Americans.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like you don't live here, so your reference is like movies and like social media and like pop culture, just like from like large media outlets. But you don't really like know or have been with people who are living here and Black. and living through their thing, or not even just Black, just other cultures, because you've been to Korea.
Yeah, I've been to Korea.
So what was the atmosphere there?
They're not really exposed to different cultures, and that's what I've noticed, because unless you go out of your way to do research, they don't know. Like, I don't think I've ever said this, but I got a lot of looks when I went to Korea, because like I look different.
It's one thing growing up in America, we think that this is like normal.
Yeah.
To be around so many different like cultures and people, and not like be like, who's that? Or like be interested by like, wonder where they're from. You know what I mean? Like I'll catch myself doing that even now, even here in America. Sometimes I'm like, I wonder where they come from. Like they look different from people that I've seen before. And it's not even in a negative way, it's like a curiosity more than anything. Yeah. But it's the fact that like it doesn't happen very often, because I'm used to seeing so many different people from so many different places. Just like when I go to the grocery store, you know what I mean? It's just like everybody looks so different, that when you go to places where it's not that way, you're like, oh, like I'm really an outsider here. Yeah. So is K-pop as popular there?
Okay, so I've heard from like a lot of people that K-pop isn't as big as it is internationally, but I would go against that. I honestly, like, when I went to Korea, I saw like BTS. You know who BTS is, right? Yeah. I see their posters like everywhere. Like they're doing like phone advertisements, or they're doing like some kind of chicken ad, or like I see their faces everywhere. So I don't know if it's
just that they're like the celebrities, or if they're
if they're actually into,
like, people are fanatics.
Yeah.
And it's so strange to me that we have this habit as humans to be like interested in what we don't have around us. Almost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how I see K-pop sometimes. Is like you're interested because it's like a new take on the same stuff that you have here, but it's like different. You know, it's different because it's over there. Yeah. It's different because there's like a little twist on it.
And like also their lyrics as well. It's different from lyrics from here.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like I see obviously tons of people who don't speak Korean love K-pop.
Yeah.
What about K-pop to them is so like interesting when you remove the fact that like sometimes they don't understand the words. They have to like
look it up,
right?
A lot of these K-pop songs talk about how like, you know, like you're perfect just the way that you are, and like love yourself and like stuff like that. So that's why people like BTS so much, because that's what they talk about.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That there's like material going into a little bit of deeper subjects.
Yeah.
I went to it was like a concert, right? Of a K-pop artist.
When?
Recently, downtown.
The one here. Yeah.
And you opened up for her. Like you did a dance cover, right? And I remember very short young girl coming up to you and being like, you're Nikki, right? Nicole or something. And she was like, yeah. And she was so like happy to see you and talk to you. And you were very sweet with her. And she was basically like, you know, kind of a fan. She knew who you were. She was all like, you know, like smiling, cheesing hard. And I remember thinking like, oh, that must be so rewarding to actually talk to the people that like see you or watch your videos, because I think there's like a certain aspect about social media that you kind of get into this like mode of, you get used to like the communication, but there's difference obviously when you communicate through online and in person. And sometimes it almost feels fake, right? Because you're like, I never see any of these fans. And I have all these views and all these comments and likes. And you're like, people seem to like me. But it's like a level up when people actually come up to you and you're like, oh, you're a human being and you actually you're alive.
I honestly, it still surprises me every time that does happen.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh wow, like this is actually real.
Oh.
Like.
Oh, people actually watch. I wasn't sure. The views confused.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I'm just like I'm not used to this, and I don't think I'd ever will get used to it. Just because like. I really do appreciate everyone who likes my stuff.
Right.
I'm honestly not that different from them, you know? And I want them to see that as well. I'm going through hardships just like them, and like I'm going through life as well. I want them to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's very true to all kind of the social media world in general. Like I'm a human being too. Yeah. Because I think they're also like, oh, this is a person I see on screen, but when you see them in person, this is a completely different and new kind of connection that you make with somebody. Does social media sometimes have its cons for you as far as like creativity and working and putting out content? Like, does it? I know it has its like struggles within using it, you know?
Yeah, because I want to be able to support myself.
Right.
With my content, like sometime in my life, I hope I can only hope.
I'm kidding.
But like at first, the negative comments used to hurt, but then I came to realize, you know, like as long as there's people who support me, that's all that should matter.
Right.
Yeah, because like you know, you don't know if like that person who is writing the hate comment is actually saying it because
they mean it,
or it's just
they're just trying to be mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like they're just trying to hurt you.
Or they're just
or they have a bad day.
Right.
Or, I don't know.
And they're like, I hate everybody. Who's this random girl? I hate you.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So cause there used to be comments about like my legs, how like they're too muscular or like they're too like they look a certain way. I'm like, well, I can't change.
Yeah,
who I
can't like let me distort my face. Let me go get surgery. Do all this stuff just to like appease you.
One person.
Right. Yeah. That has a bad comment. It's just natural for us to like though focus. Like we could have all these likes, but like one person says something that might hit like something in us that we've already been a little judgmental or critical in ourselves.
Yeah.
And since we're our own worst critics, we're like, somebody else thinks this too. It's real. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're like, it's a real thing. But the truth is, it's like, usually if you are critical about yourself in any aspect, sure, it can be a real thing that your thighs are bigger than, you know, a model's or something like that. But it's not something anybody will actually point out that actually matters. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's not something that somebody who loves you or cares about you or actually knows you or not even knows you but has like any sense of self like worth will say about you. Because nobody who's like confident in themselves is going around being like, you need to fix this and this. Nobody's you know what I mean? Yeah. Those kind of people aren't worried about your appearance. They are secure in themselves. I think the most insecure people
will point out
other people's flaws. You know? So that is definitely why I don't struggle with social media because of negative comments. But I think it gets a little easy to feel like I'm not doing enough.
Oh yeah.
Or like this person is ahead of me, you know, in the same field that I'm trying to be in, and I need to like step up my game. And it's overwhelming feeling like I'm never doing enough. Like, how do I stay on here all the time, but also like give my brain a break? Also understand that I'm being a little bit like overly judgmental on myself. And doing too much comparison. And I think that's
I do that too.
Right. It's a struggle for any content creator, I think, online that is going to be part of any kind of social media, whether it's video or photos or Facebook, Twitter, you know? Yeah. I think it's like you get caught up in a little bit of a comparison game. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast, and thank you for having me on your channel. This was fun.
Yeah.
And I love
this.
learning about this because I mean I've watched the transformation on some level of you and how this progressed
during high school,
but I never really asked you that deeply about it or any of that stuff. So it was nice having this little convo.
Thank you.
I'll
make sure to link her YouTube and her Instagram.
Link her YouTube. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Heidi.